Happy Cinco de Mayo, everyone. We are here for our weekly COVID-19 town hall with Dr. Sanjay. Hi there.
Hi, John. How are you? Happy Cinco de Mayo.
We don't get to hand out sombreros to everyone, so this is the best I can do. Sorry.
That's fine. I actually did have a lovely Mexican dinner prepared at home. We had ceviche, tacos. You know, it was great. Absolutely great. So, some of the background and basics. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. It is May 5th, 2020. This is the 7th town hall that John and I are holding. This is the 5th that John has been helping and collaborating on with me. We're very happy to have you. We're going to be covering the basic topics as usual. We'll be going into a little bit more detail regarding testing as well. I'm sure there's a lot of questions about testing, as well as how to reintegrate yourself, with your family, friends, community that you haven't seen in a while, and using the mask, protecting yourself, just the very basics, so that we'll leave the science stuff for later, and any technical questions you have regarding the biomedical side of things, I'm happy to answer for you, but we're just going to cover the basics to begin with. So as you well know, we crossed over 1 million confirmed cases in the United States. Again, there's a lot of debate about whether those numbers are accurate or not. I happen to believe that they are not. And in fact, there are or have been many more confirmed cases of COVID-19 that have occurred over the last 90 days. We have unfortunately suffered more than 70,000 lost lives, and over 1,000 of those, perhaps more, but as far as I understand from reporting, over 1,000 of those are healthcare workers that were treating patients, and they got ill, and they had the worst course of the disease, resulting in death. We have tested more than 7.5 million people, which is great news. We're going to obviously have to get to about 30 million people tested before we can really get an adequate grasp on how transmissible this disease is, and then obviously take the history of disease from a sample population to find out how long they suffered the symptoms, and then what percentage of them actually suffered the worst course of the disease. Right now, it seems that, again, as we discussed last week, if you get COVID-19, 80% of you will suffer a bad flu, a mild to moderate flu that lasts between 4 and 8 days. 10% of you will suffer the worst flu you've ever had: body ache, chills, rigor, chills and shaking, a lot of night sweats, weight loss, malaise and severe fatigue. In that group of people, not the entire amount will seek treatment, but it will be a really bad flu. And then the last 10% are those that suffer the worst course of the disease. They end up having a greater than 8 to 12 day, very, very severe symptoms that also affect not only their lungs and breathing, but may also affect other organs, including the kidneys, the heart, the skin. And we're finding that this is actually really caused by the inner lining of the blood vessels, called the endothelium, and its response to the infection. So, and among those 10% that are going to the hospital, our numbers are indicating anywhere between a 1.5 to 2.5% mortality. So if you can break that down to basic numbers, every 10 patients that go into the hospital, about 2 of them will not come out. So this is the numbers. Right now, there's really good indication that our primary hotspot in New York City is seeing a decline. a 7-day steady decline in number of confirmed cases. If we see another 7 days of that, they will have really moved out of this phase of infection and be able to start. The numbers will be small enough to start adequate, not just mitigation, but somewhat containment of any further spread. The rest of the country is now seeing the rise in cases. So we still have not seen the peak in this country, as the peak has been observed in Italy and Spain and other places, and they have begun to see a 4 to 5 day decline in cases. Here in the United States, we definitely are still on the rise. And one important statistic. March 31st was the first day that the number of cases in the United States confirmed by testing was above 75,000, almost a little over 75,000 cases were confirmed. We have not fallen below 70,000 cases confirmed per day since then. Although the peaks have started to decline, we have not seen one day with the limited availability of testing having risen over the course of the last month to accommodate the demand. We still haven't seen less than 70,000 cases per day for now over a month. So this obviously is a concerning number, but each community is seeing different peaks and at different times. There are lots of online resources to go and look at your county and see how you're comparing to the rest of your state. John and I are residents of Luzerne County here in Pennsylvania. We are definitely among the hotspots in Pennsylvania. We are beginning to see a decline in the numbers in our county, but this whole eastern part of Pennsylvania that borders New Jersey and the New York metropolitan area has definitely seen the worst of what's happening in Pennsylvania. But we're seeing cases begin to decline. So here's the graph that John brought up. John, if you put your mouse over March 31st, you'll see the cases rose to about, where are we? Are we in the United States? Yeah, 75,000. It hasn't fallen below 70,000 at all since that day. So make what you will of that. We are not headed down yet. And there is still a huge opportunity for us to lose control of this, this mitigation phase and have new hotspots spring up when you are seeing a prevalence of disease at this level continuously for over 30 days. Okay. Do we have any questions on numbers, incidence, prevalence, anything like that that you guys are concerned about? Anything you're seeing in your community before I move on to testing? Just unmute and chime in with your name, where you're from, and any questions that you might have.
Sanjay.
Hey, Terry.
How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining again.
Love to come every week.
Great.
Hey, so our governor announced today that on Friday the 8th, they will be opening up all the beauty shops, barber shops. He held out on the tattoo parlors. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But what's the chance of someone breathing down your neck could give you corona? Right?
Yeah.
So
it's a little too high. It's an extreme risk. So the reason being, this is great. I'm glad you brought this question up because over the last week, I have had to discuss, we'll call it, the fact that a lot of the graphics that are floating around on Twitter and on Facebook are highly inaccurate, okay? There's no way, there's a graphic that I think we saw last week and we also discussed it, I'll bring it up again, of two people facing each other and then there's percentages. If you don't have masks, you have a 70%. None of that is correct. It is not, you're not able to predict the percentage of transmission based on the distance between two people. There's too many variables. However, you are able to say high, medium, low, okay? If you're within 3 feet of a person that has not been tested, that didn't have access to a test, doesn't know their status, maybe an asymptomatic carrier, if you're within 3 feet of that person, your risk level is high, okay? So whether you're getting your nails done or your hair cut or getting a tattoo or anything that involves a person-to-person service, we'll call it, okay? You're taking an enormous risk by not knowing, first of all, the testing status of that person. If you're untested and you go in, and even if that person is tested and by their business has been a responsible business would say, guys, I'm going to offer tests for all of my employees, and we're going to test you every 14 days, or if you get if you start to feel ill, we'll test you, but we want you to come back to work. In that event, you walk into an establishment where everybody's tested and everybody's negative, but you don't know whether you're putting everybody in that establishment at risk. Okay?
Oh, definitely. This is just part of the rush to open up. I live in Texas. The economy comes first. Don't matter how many corpses you line the street with. We got to get the state of Texas rolling.
Yeah. No. So then we're running into privacy issues, right? Which is a topic that I want to bring up when it comes to now that we're talking about testing. We might as well roll with these questions and keep the conversation going. A lot of people commented that our last town hall was the best because we just had a conversational approach to it, and I want to keep that going with this one as well. John helped a lot with that, with gathering the questions, and so we'll do this now and keep this format because it's, I think, very useful for people. There are two things that were really interesting to me on the news. One is almost every news anchor that's out on no matter what network, out on the street is broadcasting with a mask on. That is one, unnecessary, because usually their camera person is also with them most of the time, and they must know each other's testing status. But I think they're doing it in a way to set an example for the public, okay? And I think that is a good thing to do. Even these news anchors, even though, first of all, they're about 6 to 8 feet away from a camera, there's no one around them, and they're still wearing a mask. It sets a good example, but it's not necessary. I think we really need to educate people about what is necessary and what is not, because a lot of people, especially in your state and others where there's a backlash against, unfortunately, there's a backlash against the prevailing science and the recommendations that are coming forth to keep everybody safe. I want to reiterate, you should not be wearing a mask everywhere all the time, right? That does not protect you. And in fact, it's defeating the purpose of the mask, because you're essentially exposing the mask to all of these different things, as well as pathogens other than COVID-19, okay? So let's get that straight. If you're within 12 feet of a person in public, not even 6 feet, the mask should be up. I shouldn't walk up to Terry and then when I'm 6 feet away from him, put the mask on, okay? If I see Terry coming, I don't know his testing status, I don't even know mine. The responsible thing to do is, before you get within 6 feet of that person, your mask is on. If you are in a high human traffic area, your mask is on. If you're within 3 feet of a person and you have a mask on and they don't, that's risky, okay?
Let's take a quick minute. We're going to show a quick video which explains why.
Okay.
Heavy cough. 3, 2, 1.
Inside this lab at Florida Atlantic University, 2 engineering professors are measuring the power of a cough.
2, 1.
Using a dummy, they fill its mouth with a mix of glycerin and water. Then, with a pump, force the dummy to cough. Then wait to see how far the droplets travel. They fill the air, visible with the green laser light, simulating what happens when we cough.
It generates particles on the order of 10 to 20 microns, which is roughly close to what the smallest droplet sizes are when we cough.
Take note how quickly the simulated respiratory droplets spread.
1.
The droplets expelled traveled a distance of 3 feet almost immediately. Within 5 seconds, the droplets were at 6 feet, then 9 feet in just about 10 seconds. Remember, 9 feet is 3 feet beyond the recommended social distancing guidelines.
It's already reaching roughly 9 feet now. It's still moving farther slowly.
The fog of droplets lingered in the air, but kept moving forward, taking just another 30 to 40 seconds to float another 3 feet.
It's getting closer to 12 feet now.
Yes, he said 12 feet. Over and over again, the simulated droplets blew past the 6-foot mark, often doubling that distance.
Okay, it has passed 3 feet already, approaching 6 feet. And it looks like it has crossed 6 feet. And now it has slowed down.
How long might they linger at 9 feet and 12 feet?
So at 9 feet, they could linger for, provided still air, 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, but the concentration is less than what it would be at say 6 feet by about a factor of 8.
The professors say the droplets become less dense the further they travel, but they still hang in the air, still with the ability to carry disease. And watch this. Even when we put a simple mask on the dummy, particles still dispersed from the sides of the mask, though they didn't travel very far.
Certainly, if you're not wearing a mask, you're supposed to cough into your elbow. But if you cough into your hand, this is what happens. Let's turn out the lights. I'll put my hand up against the mouth of this dummy and simulate a cough. You can see the droplets spray in all directions. They may not travel as far, maybe about 3 feet or so, but they spray everywhere. And they can linger in the air, possibly for as long as 3 minutes.
Intensity of the cough matters, so we tested a gentle cough too. The lighter cough didn't go very far at all, about 3 feet, but the question remains, how close is too close?
Do you think, based on what you've seen in your own lab, that 6 feet is enough for social distancing?
6 feet is a minimum distance that you should keep. It seems that...
But further is better.
Further is better.
Yeah. So obviously this is a pretty amazing demonstration of what is going on. You know, the unseen that's going on with one person and a simulation. Now imagine a store that's seeing 50 visitors an hour and what's lingering in the air. So masks are important. There's a lot of misinformation, again, that we continue to have to cover over and over every week, that wearing a mask, unless it's an N95 or above, doesn't protect you. False. Wearing a mask is really not only for yourself, but it is actually more for the others in your community, the others that you're going to encounter that are coming across the same environments that you are. And so we were recommending wearing a mask so that you don't have all of this. I wish they had shown what happens if you do wear an appropriate surgical mask over that mouth, and how extensively it does reduce the amount of particulates that go out into the air. So that's important to note. Let me see where. Okay, that's very important to note. Going back to Terry's question, what happens if you go into a service establishment that's servicing 10, 15, 30 people an hour? That's in the air, and if you're 3 feet away from that, and obviously the masking is going to reduce, it's going to minimize, but without knowing the testing status, you're putting yourself at risk. Okay, one. Number two, the other thing that I saw is that a lot of government officials and those being interviewed on various channels, again, I try to keep this non-political because I don't want somebody to watch this and just turn me off because I say something that is against their political bent. I'd rather they just absorb the information. And so what bothers me is a lot of these public figures are tested, okay? They're tested almost every other day, if not weekly. And they have the opportunity to go into public without a mask on because they feel confident that they are not a threat to anybody else. And they mostly in environments, 99% of the time they're in environments where they are safe, and so they don't feel like they need to wear a mask. And again, that sets an example. Okay, it sets an example for others that think that mask usage is for people that are afraid, or that are immune compromised, or that are just afraid of their own shadow. None of that is true. Mask usage should be considered a responsible behavior. Okay, and even one step further than mask usage is testing. Okay, if you have an opportunity to get tested in whatever form, okay, the Rite Aid, the swab test that's locally available, that people get tested. Give yourself the peace of mind. And I've talked to a number of people in my area that got tested this week and came, the negative, and that's great. Gives them a peace of mind that they're not a threat to anybody. Okay, so now you have these public figures that are sitting right next to each other and across from interviewers that are tested all the time, and none of them are wearing masks. Okay, but then they're sitting 6 feet apart from each other. Why? If everybody's negative, why are you distancing yourself from? So this is the kind of senseless behavior that we keep seeing. Okay, you're taking the risks of opening these businesses without educating the public about why they should take certain precautions, how they should properly take certain precautions. Okay, that's the number one thing. We have something called evidence-based medicine in the medical community. It usually takes 7 to 8 years to standardize behavior across all physicians within a certain type of practice, whether it be primary care or specialty. Once we discover that there is a best practice, we put it out there in the literature, and we see adoption hit its maximum 7 to 8 years later. Okay, that's how long it takes for doctors to accept a best practice. Can you imagine how long it takes the general public? What is it going to take? A decade before people start to realize what is the best way to protect themselves? We can't have that. Okay, and there are those out there that are also saying that pointing out that people aren't wearing a mask in public is rude and obnoxious, and to a certain extent it is, but leading by example is actually a better response. Okay, so if you are masking up, if you're masking up properly, if you are entering and exiting these high traffic areas in a responsible way, hopefully that sets an example. And if more of us do that, that sets an even greater example, right? But the examples that you're seeing on television right now are senseless, okay? On one end, you have reporters standing, yards away from anyone, okay? They're of no risk to anyone, and no one is at of risk to them, and they have their mask on, okay? I want people to know that that is senseless. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have people that are tested, okay, and that are around other people that are tested, and they're yet sending the wrong example by going either into factories or hospitals. I mean, absurd behavior without a mask on. It's irresponsible, okay? That's not virtue signaling to point that out. That's not trying to shame someone. I'm just in this town hall and as much as I can by example, just trying to educate, okay? Do I recommend anyone go get a haircut for the next 2 weeks? No. For the next month? No. You can deal with long hair for a little while longer. We need to see those curves start to come down. If they're level across this country, then and you don't know whether the other people that are visiting that establishment or working in that establishment are one tested and negative, and then also are behaving responsibility in public and in their own circle. You're just opening yourself up to risk.
For the next 2 weeks, you deal with you see the curves go down. If you look across the country, then you don't the people that are visiting the national working the national today,
Uh-oh.
I think that one of the things that you're over both online and there's a disconnect between political ability to acquire these items. For example, a colleague of mine said the other day, you know, the government can't force us to wear masks. And we see that all the time. There's a protest against, you know, government and public officials telling people that they should wear masks, and a misunderstanding that people should be wearing these to protect themselves and others. Forget about whether someone's allowed to tell you or if they're forcing you to do something. And I think that we're in a time that people are protesting this and saying, I'm not going to wear a mask because I'm not going to have anybody tell me to do. Well, that's just kind of stupid.
Yeah, well, I mean, I liken it to seatbelts. We've been told that seatbelts save lives. We've been told to wear seatbelts. There's even an alternative to seatbelts, the airbag, that doesn't work as effectively if you don't have your seatbelt on. And decades of people telling the entire public to wear seatbelts has resulted in people generally wearing their seatbelt. And those people generally survive a bad crash, and the people who don't generally do not. There's only so much that the government can tell you what is good for you, and then you have to take that advice or leave it, okay? Now, to get mad at the government for telling you to wear a seatbelt and protesting them, I don't necessarily see the point in that, okay? So if you don't want to wear a mask, I'll just say that, you know, you're welcome to not wear a mask, not around me, because I will avoid you. You know, and the other thing is that for society to return to any sense of normalcy, where we do trust each other, everybody needs to get tested. Everybody needs to get tested. You know, and I had a question come across my page. Well, you know, what does that mean? Does everybody need to get tested every day? Well, first of all, there are no dumb questions, so I will answer that. Testing needs to be available and performed at your level of risk, okay? So if you're a healthcare worker that's working in a COVID ward, then you need to have you need to have the availability to you, the opportunity to test every other day. Yes, every other day. Because you can't re-enter a COVID ward and potentially spread it to everyone along the way within your workspace to get to that ward. If you've been working in a COVID ward and you've been working there for weeks and are asymptomatically carrying, you're a risk to everyone around you. On the way to the parking lot, on the way home, at home, the whole thing. And the fact that we haven't had the level of testing appropriate to be able to test our frontline workers every other day is irresponsible, and it's bad. Okay, so that's one. If you're a very, very high risk, you should be tested every other day. If you are, you know, a normal community member, you should get tested now. Okay, as soon as possible. If you work in high traffic, human high traffic conditions, like a big box store or a warehouse, or, you know, you've got drivers coming in and they're dropping off materials and you're unloading it, and you're working around a bunch of other people, or you're working around, you know, 30, 50, 100 customers a day, you should be tested anywhere between every 2 weeks to every month for the next 6 months. If at any time any of your tests return positive, you should be granted 21 days leave. Paid. Sorry, but I mean, yeah, that's the way it should work. If you live on 144 acres and you've got less than 10 people in your life, okay, you can wait to get tested, all right? But I still recommend you do get tested at some point, and then you don't need to get tested again if you don't have more than those 10 people coming in and out of your life on a regular basis, and they're all healthy and they're all tested negative. Okay, this is the type of high risk bubble, medium risk bubble, low risk. Okay, and we don't need to put percentages on it because there's no way to accurately do that. We can just say, you know what, I work with a lot of people. I should get tested every 2 weeks to a month, and if I end up positive, then I need to drop out of the workforce for 21 days. If you're in healthcare, you need to get tested very often. If you're not any of those two things, then just get tested and try to stay safe, be vigilant, so that you don't put yourself at risk.
Talk about the type of test that's currently available at the Rite Aids, at the Walgreens and the CVS's that are doing these testing.
Great, good question. So we have more information than we had last week. The good news is that testing is widely available, much more widely. The first generation of tests had about a 27% false negative rate, which means that about a third of people were getting tested and being told they're not carrying when they might have been carrying. And so of those people, you have to remember a good portion of them may never show symptoms, but they could be spreading it throughout, their community. So that's dangerous and bad. More recently, we call it the second generation of swab detection tests, and we call them swab detection tests because we use a swab. We don't have to use the technique used in the first generation where we go all the way back into the nasopharynx. We can just swab the inside of the external, we call it the external nase, and make sure that we get a good quantity of whatever is able to be collected there. That test is then taken to a machine. The machine breaks down the stuff that's on the swab. It looks for a specific sequence of RNA, which is the fingerprint of the virus. And then it says, yes, you have SARS-CoV-2, because a piece of that RNA that we know is, fingerprint matches what we found in your nose. That's called the swab detection test, okay? Pretty much readily available. However, I continue to hear here in Pennsylvania that you need to be symptomatic or have had contact with a symptomatic patient. I don't know the exact details. I have a friend that works at Hershey Medical Center. They continue to have to go through this guidance to try to preserve the number of tests. But Rite Aid in our community here in Luzerne County does have the you can just go to Rite Aid and get tested, okay? Then there's the at-home swab tests where they'll send you a little box and you follow the instructions, you put it back in the box and send it, and within, I think 48 hours, you get a result online, all right? That's the swab detection test. Any questions there? I have not been tested nor sought testing, although after tonight that will change. Great news. Thank you, Sean. Great. Okay. So if everybody understands the swab test, I want to move on to the antibody test because that's going to be coming soon. It's already available, but I want you guys to understand what it is and why it's different. Okay. So to recap, swab test, up the nose, goes into a machine. You either have the virus, okay, or you don't. If you have the virus, that means you've been exposed and you could potentially get sick if you are not already sick. The third outcome is you have the virus and you could be an asymptomatic carrier and you could just go go through the next couple of weeks and it will disappear. It's weird, I know, but that's the truth of it. Swab test. Positive, you're carrying the virus, you've been exposed. You could get sick or you might not get sick. Got it? Antibody test. We need to take blood. Antibody test, we need to take blood. In your blood are going to be something called immunoglobulins, which are the short form of it we call antibodies. They are produced in response to you getting infected. You could get infected by a bacteria, you could get infected by a virus, but ultimately your body's response is to get all the white blood cells coordinated, and the white blood cells do their jobs and ultimately tell a certain type of white blood cell called a B cell to produce antibodies. Those antibodies then start being produced in mass, and within 6 to 8 days of your infection, you will see a rise in the number of antibodies per unit volume, all right? So that rise in antibodies is a signal that you are approaching well, you are in the process of what we call seroconversion. Your blood serum, the proteins in your blood are now converting or being produced in a form to fight the infection. At about 2 weeks, you have a quantity that is protective. Got it? 6 to 8 days, B cells ramp up production in response to infection. 2 weeks after infection, you have a good quantity of protective antibodies. So why is this important? And there are a number of questions that have been asked and are arising that we should answer here, okay? One is, if I get tested with the blood test and what are the results, okay? So what results can I expect? You can expect one of 3 results. 1, you're positive for antibodies, meaning you were sick with COVID, okay? You have recovered, and it's been more than 2 weeks since recovery, and you have antibodies that are protective. And we'll define protective in a moment, but let's leave it at that. Result number 1 could be you're positive, okay? You're positive for antibodies, which means you have suffered the infection in whatever form, mild, moderate, or severe, and now you have antibodies. Result number 2, you don't have antibodies, okay? You don't have antibodies means that you have not gone through the seroconversion and you have not gone through the infection. Does that mean you've never been exposed and you're not carrying the virus? No, which means you should probably also get the swab test, okay? Number 3, for whatever reason, you get a result called indeterminate. Indeterminate is one of those weird results that we get when we've given you the antibody test for some inexplicable reason. You got the antibody test within 8 days of getting infected. Understand what I'm saying? So we tested you during the phase at which your body is building up those protective antibodies, all right? So it's most likely we've got a weak signal on those antibodies. Somehow your body was exposed, you're in recovery, and we tested you at a point in time where you have some antibodies, they're weakly reactive, but they're just not enough there to say you have a positive on antibodies. If we test you maybe 8 days later, you could probably show a positive or weakly reactive, but we'll let it go. Let's just say that if you were positive, you have protection and you're recovered from COVID. If you're negative, you don't have protection, and you should probably also get the nasal test. Is that clear? All right. Now, lastly, the antibody test really is for people, I would say like Mike, okay, that felt like he was exposed early in this whole, scenario. Mike, when did you say you felt ill? January or February?
It was around February.
Yeah. Okay. So moderate illness, you would say? Bad flu symptoms?
It was just like just a cough that I couldn't kick, and it went for like, I don't know, let's say a good week and a half, maybe 2 weeks.
Okay. Any fever?
I didn't notice anything. Like, I continued to do my like
Regular.
day to day, and it didn't really, I didn't feel lethargic or anything.
Okay. And that's not unusual. I would say that's the presentation in significant number of people that are very, generally very healthy, and then just have some weird illness in the last 90 to 120 days. But there's no way to know, right? So the only way to know whether Mike was exposed and recovered is to get the antibody test. Now let's go over what is protective. Okay. If there's no questions on what I've covered so far, I can talk about what's protective. Okay. So before we do that, there is a question about, or a statement. I don't go anywhere, so I don't want to waste a test. That's actually fine. Like I said, you're in the third category of people. They don't have a lot of external contacts. So you're neither being exposed or potentially exposing anyone else if you happen to have it, which you probably don't. So yeah, I'm advising those first two groups, right? People that want to get back, that need to get back out into the community because their work is, they need to get back to work. They're essential workers, or they obviously have their own financial imperative to get back to work. They need to get tested, right? So that's the main risky category. And then the highest risk category, obviously, healthcare workers, because if you're, again, that video that John showed is pretty illustrative, right? Like, if you're, forget about coughing, talking, I mean, it would have been pretty impressive or important to also show how much expectorant comes out when you're just talking, right? Imagine a hospital environment, right, where hundreds of workers are talking, exchanging information, talking to patients. They don't know the status of these patients. They don't know this, their own status. In that environment, it is rampant. The virus, whether it's not just COVID, it's other, whatever, is rampant. Hospitals are one of the dirtiest places in the world ever, anywhere. Okay. So if you don't go anywhere and you don't have many contacts, there's no need to rush out and go get a test. All right. Protective. Oh, Project Baseline. Thank you, John. So that's the one that Rite Aid is participating in. John put a link in the chat where one of Google's divisions is working with Rite Aid in order to provide free testing to as many people as they possibly can. And obviously, the more people, let's say you live in a community of 5,000 people, imagine 90% of them get tested, right? Or 60%. Imagine how much faster that community will get back to normal operations. And we have to do that at scale. At 7.5 million people tested, John, do we know how many of those tests are coming back positive? We should find out. So 7.5 million people have been tested. 75,000 on average people a day are testing positive. That's pretty remarkable, right? Okay, I'm going to wait for John's audio to catch up. Can everyone hear me?
You're coming through fine, Sanjay.
Okay.
It's like John's audio and video is speeding up and stopping, and then I can't hear him at that point.
I have the same problem, almost like it's buffering and then coming out.
Exactly.
All right. Well, let me just cover protection. Okay. So there's there were a lot of reports about people potentially getting reinfected, or that in South Korea there was a question about whether patients have relapsed because they were tested after they were discharged, 6 days or 12 days after discharge, and the nasal swab came back positive. A basic understanding of how the test works will explain that, okay? If there's remnant RNA in your nasopharynx, okay, it's going to test positive. So if you had it, you had a high viral load, even days after you've recovered, there's going to be bits of virus, you know, in your nasopharynx, in your mucous membranes, that's going to be cleared out by normal processes, white blood cells clearing out debris and all this stuff that happens. But essentially it was just the same infection, just the leftover junk, the debris from that fight. Okay, so that's important to notice, to know that if you hear, or if you come across some of these older reports of patients, oh my goodness, could you get this again? Like you get the common cold, because 30% of the common cold is actually caused by another version of coronavirus, a cousin of it. And you can get a common cold, 2 or 3 times in a season. Could this happen again to you in this season or in this go around? In all likelihood, because of the molecular, biology of this particular virus, the answer is no. You are conferred probably 6 to 8 months, if not more, protection if you have suffered this disease, seroconverted, and you have antibodies. Okay, so what would make you potentially get this disease all over again? Well, one of the things that we're watching, and we've covered this again before, is that this virus, like the flu virus, will mutate season to season, year to year. And just today, I watched an interview with a scientist from the UK, from Oxford University, that is in charge. He's the primary investigator in charge of the vaccine development, and has now 500 patients vaccinated, and is watching them very closely to see whether the vaccine that they have developed, which is great news, they have a vaccine that is ready to go into human beings, and they've already done that with 500 people, sponsored by their National Health Service. He said that he anticipates that whatever vaccine they come up with is going to be a yearly, just like flu. So you're going to get your flu shot, and you're probably also going to get a SARS shot. We covered why, we covered this and why last week, but to briefly recap, it's because year to year, these strains mutate, they change, they die off. Okay, so an effective vaccine from the previous year actually blocks a bunch of strains from moving forward into the next season. Blocks them, kills them off, right? Those strains end that year, and then the ones that kind of escape around as a result of people who don't get vaccinated, and then also as a result of being substantially different morphologically than the previous year, they escape and they go on as a prevailing or persistent strain to the next season, and then we have to identify them. We have to add that to the updated flu vaccine on a yearly basis to keep ahead of the disease and to get everybody to have that level of protection year to year. So I hope that helps make sense of protection. Okay, so the basics. Now, again, this is the last one on the basics, and then we're going to go to more complicated topics. And based on questions, I'm not going to bore you guys, but based on what was seen in the news. Okay, masking. We did this before, we're doing it again, all right? Simple surgical masks. These are very effective. I have a supplier that I buy off of who is a medical supplier with his own eBay store, and not only sells to the medical community, but also sells to the general public now. Reliable, trackable shipments, reasonable price, doesn't gouge and all that stuff. And I did post it on our page, but I'll do it again, okay? So you bend the nose, right? So you got a nice curve, all right? Then you place it over your face, but you don't leave it like this, okay? It has pleats for a reason. We're gonna pull the pleat down so that it is secure underneath the neck, against nice and, you know, curved in against the mandible, against your jawline. Then you're gonna press down here. Now, I've heard people say, don't touch the mask with your hands. Why? Well, I have clean hands, so I can touch the mask, okay? If I go out and I pick up an orange in a grocery store, all right, then you want to avoid touching your mask, all right? But if you're putting this on at home, which you shouldn't do anyway, but if you're putting this on in a clean environment like your car, you should be cleaning off your steering wheel. You should make sure that, you know, things are relatively clean and hygienic in your car. And you get out of your car and your hands are clean, then you can do this. You can, you know, make sure that you got a nice seal here, and etc. All right, this is enough for most people. I'm going to go on to why someone like me or others that may have some immune compromise or whatever might want another layer on here, and I'll go over that. But the other question that we covered is glasses. They fog up. Every time I breathe, I'm walking around, I'm getting fog. Okay, no problem. See the thing here? Twist it. That puts more pressure over here. Okay? And that downward pressure is going to create an even greater seal here. Got it? That allows you to wear glasses without fogging. Okay? You do want to watch that this is nicely snug under the neck when you're walking around, because again, you don't want a lot coming out of here and going in through the sides. All right? Now, so that helps with the glasses. This is obviously for those of us who need to take extra precaution, especially if you're going to be around other people for more than 30 minutes, like you're grocery shopping or you're walking around a big box store or whatever, right? So you're gonna get another scarf-like elastic type of thing, got it? And you can wear it nicely over this and make sure that it's nice and snug over the ears, got it? Now you've got a nice seal. You don't have airflow through here. You don't have airflow through here, okay? You are well protected for a good half hour. And if you aren't tested and you don't know whether you're carrying the virus, you're protecting your community. You're protecting other people around you from what we just saw John show us, you know, expectorant. So you've got, you know, two layers, which are essentially 4 surfaces that are, and it's not that uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable, but it's not bad. Got it? Okay. Questions now?
Hey, Sanjay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that is called a neck gaiter.
Gaiter. There we go. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, Sanjay.
Yeah.
So I work over at a ski resort, and we're going to talk about getting our food and beverage departments running in about a month, hopefully, if stuff works out or whatnot. But you said that the masks are good for half an hour. Now we're requiring our employees to wear them in front of the guests at, you know, in front and back of the house at all times.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean if it's only good for like half an hour?
Okay.
Like,
I'm talking specifically about these surgical masks. Okay.
Okay.
If you have other masks that are more, let's call it absorbent, or have some sort of wicking capacity. All right. The biggest problem that we want to avoid is it getting kind of just soggy. Okay. Because it's just going to attract particles, and it's going to, It's going to make it more difficult to breathe, and that discomfort is going to lead to people going like this. Oh, I need a break, right? Now, every time you do this, you're losing the effectiveness, especially if you're within 6 feet of someone else. All right. So I've seen these duck-billed ones. Have you seen them? The ones that look like duck-bills. They leave quite a bit of space in front for a lot more comfort. I don't know if they're readily available, but Europeans use them. European doctors use them extensively. So that's really for long usage, like, you're going to be in a ward for 4 to 6 hours, and you need that breathability, but you can't have it crushed up against your face like you're talking about. People are going to have to figure out what works for them, with the knowledge that what you're trying to do is, one, reduce the amount of foreign particles, okay, in the form of expectorant from other people, droplets, things that are coming through an air conditioner that's going in and sitting in your nasal passages and in your mouth. That's number one. Minimize it, right? Number two, be comfortable with what you're wearing. So if you're not comfortable, you're constantly be pulling it down, constantly trying to get a breath, right? Then you're just reducing the effectiveness of it. So what I would tell I would make a kind of an experiment in the first 5 days, right? Talk to them about which ones that work for them, and then have them discuss which ones are going to be the best for them to be working long term. I can send you a link. I'm sure my supplier also has those duck-bill ones. Okay, because they're just a lot more comfortable to wear. All right, and then if what they're wearing are getting soggy, then they're not effective. First of all, they're reducing airflow, breathability, and then second, they're attracting, more particles and humidity.
So Sean has a question regarding masks. Sean works at a local warehouse here in northeastern Pennsylvania. He works 10-hour shift. What kind of protection should he have in that environment?
Okay, so that's a great question, and again, that's very similar to the question that Mike asked. Mike and his staff they're just going to have to find what works for them with these two things in mind. These two primary things in mind. One is obviously protecting yourself from ingesting or having a lot of these particulates from other people or from air conditioning, anything that has droplet function, right? Anything that could possibly be blowing droplets into your face or into your mouth and nose. Protect yourself from that. If you are around a lot of people, obviously, and those people are within 6 feet of you, you need to find a solution that's comfortable for a long time. And that's not a one-size-fit-all. I recommend that you try a couple of different things. And as long as it's keeping this area covered and, restricting anything from coming into your nose and mouth, that's good. Testing is important so that you know that you're negative and that you're not a threat to anyone else. And then long-term comfort, keeping that mask around your face dry. I think we'll start seeing a lot of smarter solutions than this. I'm talking about this for the general public and people that need to go shopping and get out, once in a while for the next couple of weeks. This is good. But for you guys that are working and have to work in it for hours and hours and hours, keep those two things in mind. One, keep things from dropping into your face. Whatever works, and keeping it dry for those hours.
Something that I've seen here is the requirement, or I guess the economic piece for you individually, looking at the difference between disposable masks and reusable masks, and what the reusable masks may cost $20 or $30.
Yeah.
But you get one or two of those, and
yeah,
you take them home, you put them in the dishwasher, or
right.
You sanitize them with Lysol or Clorox.
You know,
or,
dishwasher is fine. To be honest, the dishwasher has the appropriate amount of heat and the appropriate amount of soap concentration to disinfect it appropriately. Then you don't have to be messing with Lysol and Clorox and all that, which can be really awful to have to put that back on and have those fumes, you know, have to deal with the fumes. Dishwasher safe is fantastic, and I've been recommending dishwasher safe method of cleaning to everybody. Can everyone see that? Duckbill mask. Let me see if I can turn it to the side here.
Yeah, we could see that way.
There we go. See the duckbill? John, I'll post the link so you guys can purchase that and try those out. Just leaves a lot more space in front of it of your mouth, and a little bit more freedom. And then, you know, the bottom part will start to get a little bit, you know, soggy if you just overuse it. You'll know. These are not washable or reusable; they're disposable. And we are recommending them for people like Mike just described. You know, working and having to have something comfortable on their face for hours at a time. Okay. Last of the topics is something we call trimodal therapy. That is going to be something that you hear about coming up. We covered it last week. Trimodal therapy is the use when patients used to come in 6 weeks ago, their lungs were generally flooded with fluid. They had high fever. We had to get them into the ICU. We had to intubate them and then put them on, you know, some sort of broad spectrum, whatever, to prevent their lungs from turning into a petri dish and then going into sepsis and all this other crap. That's the only thing we knew how to do then. Now, 6 weeks later, now 7 weeks later, we know that this is an inflammatory disease. This is an immune modulation disease. This is a coagulation disorder, and this is a, you know, has a viral etiology. So what we're trying to do is form up a strategy before we can get, you know, therapies down to a protocol for every patient across the country. They'll all get this if they're COVID. Right now, we're experimenting with a trimodal therapy. One is anticoagulant. Number two is to add a immune modulator. And then the third one is to use an HIV, not necessarily an HIV, but from the world of HIV, an antiviral that has a strong efficacy against viral replication and propagation. Why is this important for you to know? I don't know that it is, but unfortunately, I see a lot of patients, a lot of friends and family go into a medical environment. And like I said, not everybody is practicing at a standard of care. That mountain of up and of, you know, really diligent, you know, latest information at the university medical center level, you know, is not available to everybody. You may end up in a community hospital, you know, and they just don't have the resources. But maybe if you're armed with the resources to say, listen, I know that this is happening at Mount Sinai and at blah, 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 and UPMC, and I know from, you know, attending these lectures that, and again, I'm trying to be as credible as possible. I don't give you information that is unvetted and you know, that it's just junk science. I don't even tell you everything that I just learned, because I want to make sure that it has some validity. But it's good to have that in your mind, in your family's mind, that this is a disease that requires anticoagulation. It's a disease that requires an antiviral, and it's a disease that requires immune modulation, okay? So if you show up at your hospital and the doc is pushing hydroxychloroquine, ask for a second opinion quick. All right, this is the only reason I'm telling you about this. So yeah, this is what we're really trying to figure out. What is the best immune modulator to give? What is the best antiviral to give? And what is the best anticoagulant? And this changes by stage of disease. If you come in early enough and we have you immune modulated before the cytokine storm begins. We have you anticoagulated, so we protect your kidneys and your lungs and your other organs. Then what happens to you as the disease progresses is minimized, and what happens to you after you recover is the best possible outcome. Okay. This is what we're trying to figure out. And I think by the time John and I finish these weekly events in a couple of weeks, I will have information on what we think is going to be the protocol that has the greatest results so far, best outcomes for patients. And sometimes it's especially in these situations when the science is so new, it's good for you to be armed with it and know what to ask of your doctors when you get there. If you get there, which I hope you never get there. Okay. All right, children. So 15 patients in New York, children between the age of 2 and 15, have shown COVID positive, but they are suffering from strange rashes. We have a syndrome called Kawasaki syndrome that we identify in children, and it looks like Kawasaki's disease. So it's not Kawasaki's disease, but it looks like it. And I just want you to be aware, if you are around children, you have children, and some of these kids may actually end up going, this may be in June, it may be in July, that they go back to being around other children, they go to camp, and we still haven't gotten a grip on the transmission of COVID in the community or in your community or whatever. Children are not getting this disease anywhere close to the numbers that adults are. We don't exactly know why, but there is a theory that the way that the lining of their immature or growing lungs makes them less susceptible to getting the virus. If they do get the virus, and there are a number of cases now documented of children as young as 6 months and into the 15 to 16 age group getting this and suffering pretty bad disease, okay? Lungs, fevers, severe body aches. And actually in the kids, we're seeing a lot of dermatological symptoms and signs. So rashes, facial rashes, urticaria, and a lot of, flushing of the skin that's odd in weird patterns. But I guess John and I will cover more about kids next week, but it is important to note that if your kids get malaise, or you see or you hear about someone in the neighborhood with kids that have this fatigue, it shouldn't just be put off to, oh, they're just, maybe a flu or something. It could be COVID, and they should get tested, especially if they have these symptoms that I just described, flushing, rashes, and things like that. Okay, can I sterilize the outside of my cloth mask by putting it in direct hot sunlight for 6 hours or so, or do I need to wash it with water and soap every time? And where can I obtain reputable home tests? So John and I will get you the link. We'll post it on our page. If you scroll down through the page that we have established, you will see the links for the home tests from LabCorp. You have to pay for them. They're $119, but that you can get a home test. I would recommend, if you've got a Rite Aid near you, then just go and get the free one. The question about sunlight, wash it, no problem. I mean, if try to get 2 or 3 or 4 and wash them every other day. Sunlight sterilization will work. I don't know how well. I mean, the CDC released numbers that you can, direct sunlight will kill the thing in minutes. I just, if it's that's just not reliable to me, because I don't know what the humidity is. I don't know how dirty the mask is. There's just too many variables. So throw it in the washing machine with hot water, and and detergent soap, and when it comes out, it's clean. So that would be my recommendation.
What kind of test is the LabCorp test?
It's swab RNA detection. Yeah.
Okay, so when we talk about the types of tests, this is not an antibody test. So if you think you've had the virus, getting a home test to see that, going to Rite Aid to see that, that is not the kind of test that they're performing there. So if you actually, so Google has a great resource. Google has integrated, if you search for the terms COVID-19 test near me, it will come up with a list of the locations and the types of tests, whether it's a detection test or an antibody test or any of the other levels.
Yeah. So for 90% of the people that are listening to this call, you should go and get the swab detection test. Okay. I would say even 99%. I happen to believe that my friend Mike, who's on the call right now, who manages a team, and for his own, self awareness and perhaps even sanity, having suffered an unusual illness earlier this year, it would be great. This is also a question of whether your insurance will cover it and whether you can afford it. But for $119 as well, Quest Diagnostics, you have to go to their lab locally. The Quest Diagnostic labs are all over the country. You can go to a Quest Diagnostics lab, give blood, and they will do the antibody test. But again, the antibody test is for people that feel like they have had this illness and have recovered and want to know that they have antibodies that are protecting them from potentially getting this illness in the future. So Mike could feel a lot more confident, walking around other people that are untested if he knows that he has antibodies. Okay, this is going all the way back to the beginning of our town hall today about understanding the nuances here so that you can act sensibly. So, someone that manages a team, not all the team members are uniformly tested or routinely tested, but Mike feels like he may have the antibodies. He should check, and if he does, then he has a certain level of confidence about his protection level. Okay, but that's not the case for everybody. What the case for everybody, Mike's the exception. You guys are the rule. The rule is go get tested.
And that Quest Diagnostics test, is that like the most reputable? Because I heard like a bunch of them.
Please don't get it from anyone else. Don't get it from anyone else. Quest or an academic medical center. Usually the academics are doing it for free because they want it for their own research, and they'll do a big long history on you, and that's great if you want to participate in that. So that they can study it. But just for your own sanity, Quest is the only one that's reliable.
Oh, thanks.
Thanks for the question.
Sanjay?
Yes.
Yes, I do have a question.
Okay.
Do we have a better idea on the earliest that this virus came to America?
We do. And I think that, we don't have definitive evidence, but if you track the the genome, you can look for what we call evident mutations and things like that. And then you backtrack to when it was sequenced earlier and earlier and earlier to the point where, what was the first sequence done? That gives you a little bit of a picture of the rate of mutation, and it's kind of like doing the forensics at a crime scene. When did the person die? You can tell by the temperature of the body and all this other stuff. We think that the good science points to it having developed and in initial patient 0 in China in September. Okay, probably mid to late September, with it hitting 100 cases probably in November and 1,000 cases by early December, 2,000 or more. So the doubling rate, you could see the doubling rate start to really pick up in China as early as late November. Okay. And then they didn't do alerting globally until January. And when they started to see how lethal this thing is and how fast it's spreading. When did it come to the United States is your question. And I would say, what would have stopped it from coming to the United States in September or November, when you know how much commerce and transit and travel occurs between these regions in China, since they are major manufacturing centers and major trade centers. So
and I ask because how sick I was back around Thanksgiving, and the area where I live has a very high Chinese population.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And yeah, it was early. It would be early for this break it out, but I have never been as sick as I was that in my life. So I question it,
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the outbreak in the United States clearly began in February. Okay, clearly began in February. But you have to remember that the disease is going to attempt to outbreak many times before it does, right? So there's going to be a number of dead-end infections, people that get the disease and then they don't, for whatever reason, they don't end up transmitting it to many people, and that dead ends there, right? Or let's take the most gruesome example. It kills someone. All right. It may have killed a number of people in December and January, which gave it no opportunity to spread, right?
Right.
So there are a lot of dead-end infections before the outbreak gets the traction to become an outbreak. And so I wouldn't doubt that that COVID-19 as a disease-causing agent was present here long before the outbreak. Yeah.
Maybe I'll go get an antibody test.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just to see.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I needed to know.
Before I let you go, can anyone tell me what they'd like me to cover next week? John and I are planning a special session. We don't know whether we're going to do it next week as our 8th week of myth busting as the topic, because now it's accumulating into like just a mountain, just a mountain of crazy. And John suggested that we tackle it subject by subject. Just quickly put a stake in the heart of each of these. We have the anti-vaccine. We have there's just so much out there. The people who want to reopen because they state they have evidence that the incidence rates don't merit continuing to close down. People who debate whether the models are correct. People who debate whether the numbers of dead and the numbers infected are correct. What we're trying to do is spread as much fact-based science as we can to protect you, and so you can protect yourselves and others around you. But it's very easy to pick up a piece of evidence and think it's fact-based or science-based, and it's not. And one of the examples of that was a paper that came out pre-publication from Los Alamos Labs, one of the most trusted labs in the country, that's talking about the mutation rate of the virus. It was reported in the LA Times this week. And, it's scary, and it's kind of sensational that they sequenced this and they found a dominant mutation. This is now becoming the dominant strain. And if you look at their study and you look at the way they've reported it, it's just wrong, and it should not have been made public. So we want to tackle that kind of stuff and stamp it out.
Yeah, I got a couple things. There was a meme going around talking about how masks are negatively affecting people and their airflow.
Okay.
This was put out by a freedom protester.
Okay.
Because I tracked back to her social media page.
Okay.
Also, I encountered someone who said this, since COVID only has a R0 2, you know, which ain't too bad, and only 80 people died in Arkansas. Why not open everything up?
Yeah. No, well, okay, that's great. So we can talk about R naught and why it needs to be less than 1.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Great. Mike, you want me to cover anything for your teams? Testing or anything like that?
I was just thinking about like general practices, because we're, you know, if we're going to have to purchase these products for the employees, I'm thinking of storage and
Yeah.
How these things should be distributed, because, you know, that's
Okay.
obviously a concern if people are going to be touching that stuff.
All right. I'll do best practices for work environments, because I saw a paper on that.
Oh, that'd be great.
Okay.
I actually saw something in one of your videos that you posted earlier, and it had something to do with the way people were reacting to the virus in other countries based upon a vaccination that was going on in those other areas versus what has been done in North America.
Okay.
Did you see anything? I just flipped on like one of those videos that you had on there. It was only on for like a few seconds. I forget, it was like CGS, or I forget what the letters were, but I thought that was kind of an interesting theory on like how, you know, people were reacting differently because they had a certain vaccination within their system
BCG.
Years ago.
Yeah. I'm like wearing, yeah. Okay. BCG vaccine, and how that may be conferring some immunity. Yeah, that came up. There's actually another one that came up that's interesting. In France, a paper came out that heavy smokers are not getting the disease. So, and that's biophysics. Their lungs are so filled with crud that the virus can't get a hold of the ACE receptor.
That's surreal. Well, it goes up against everything we were taught.
Yeah, exactly. It's the disease state of their lungs is protecting them. So
that's incredible.
Yeah,
I just want to say I'm not quitting vaping anytime soon. So.
The man sits through my town halls, vapes the whole time. Okay, yeah, we can do that. Sure, protectives. Yeah. All right, I do want to. I don't want to take more time, but we've done this a couple of times over the last couple of weeks. What is good for your health, and what increases your overall health? I'm not gonna say that this is protective. So this is not going to protect you from getting the disease. I'm not going to say that there's any other benefit to this than what is actually in the science, which is, if you do supplement with vitamin C, that's going to have benefits. If you do supplement with vitamin D, that's going to have benefits. Okay. If you do supplement with a multivitamin that has zinc, manganese, magnesium, and other trace elements, that's going to have a benefit. It's not necessarily related to trying to protect yourself from COVID, but when your body has enough of this, it is more prepared to fight off anything that might be, detrimental. I can go into this, deep science of it, but I don't want anybody to take the, excess amounts of this because they think that more is better. It's not. The amounts that are recommended daily allowances, of these trace minerals is more than enough. If you really feel like, you feel better about getting your nutrients from natural sources, then just drink more orange juice. And make sure that you get half an hour of sunlight instead of taking the vitamin D supplement. But these are things that, a high protein, low carb diet, supplementing with vitamin C, vitamin D, and trace minerals. It's going to it is a more healthy way to live, and it is going to offer your body a leg up if indeed it needs to fight off an infection, and that in this case is COVID. Okay. Any other questions on supplements that you've heard of? That, again, there's tons of elderberry and all this other stuff that we don't know, but we do know We've studied vitamins for 100 years. We know what they do.
It's funny with those vitamins though, because like the moment they said zinc or vitamin D or vitamin C, you went to the market and those shelves were completely empty.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. I mean, it's great. I guess, you know, fear is a strong motivator, but
yeah, that and toilet paper.
Yeah. I guess I'm going to add this for Terry's benefit because this was in the news as well as it was last week. You know, there's going to be a lot of conjecture, and there's going to be a lot of conjecture from very prominent people. And unfortunately, we do not have a country led by people with strong science literacy and background in the scientific method. So when I heard the president talk about turn to his lab, you know, director at the CDC, director of BARDA, and talk about maybe there's a chance that, you know, you could talk to your medical doctors about using a disinfectant or UV light, and, you know, using it as to clean, you know, lungs or whatever. There's enough argument to be made about the media blowing it out of proportion, but there were enough people who took it seriously to cause self-harm that, you know, I need to address it here. There's a difference between a disinfectant, an antiseptic, an antibiotic, an antimicrobial, an antiviral. They are all very, very different, okay? An disinfectant is something that you use on non-living surfaces, okay? So you can't use it on your dogs, you can't use it on your fish, you can't use it on yourself. It's a disinfectant. It's dangerous. It's usually caustic or corrosive. You know, it's used to clean metal or glass or wood or whatever. It's a disinfectant. An antiseptic is something that you could put on something and leave it there to prevent the growth of organisms, okay? An antibiotic is something that you do take internally to fight off an infection. The same with an antiviral, all right? These have definitions, and we have in our pockets these devices that hold the entirety of human knowledge on them if we want it, okay? So just Google antiseptic, antiviral, or come here and ask me. If your friends argue with you, tell them to join the town hall or email me. But these are dangerous things, okay? You should not take any of these things without medical advice. And I'm specifically talking about antibiotics, antivirals, okay? Don't buy them from anyone. Do not try to source them on the internet. Any of the drugs that you've heard from me in this, you know, I'm just educating you about what we in the scientific community are you know, researching day and night in order to find solutions to this problem, COVID-19, and treating it. But I'm just giving you that information. This does not mean that you should be keeping it in your bathroom medicine cabinet, okay? And under no circumstances should you utilize antiseptics or disinfectants on or near your body, either as prophylactic, you know, protectant, or cleaning or treatment of any kind. I'm saying this because I know everybody that I'm talking to on the Zoom, but there's going to be hundreds of people that watch this on YouTube as well as on the Facebook Live who I don't know. And so for your benefit, please, you know, if just, I'm happy to answer those questions. Okay. All right. Wrap it up.
All right, folks. Thanks so much for joining us on this Cinco de Mayo.
I can't believe you did that.
We will, I think we'll be back next week with a regular show, probably 2 weeks till our myth busting session. What we're going to do is next week we will have a email address or you can send to the Facebook page any links to bad information or information that you think might be bad that we can include in that show. Once again, my name's John Taw. I'm here live in northeastern Pennsylvania, about 4 miles from Sanjay, who's in Shavertown. I'm in Kingston, and we love doing this for you every week. So we'll hope to see you real soon, virtually, and eventually someday in person.
Yes, absolutely. Take care, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining. See ya.
Thanks, Sanjay.
You're welcome. Bye.